The act of modifying a cheap guitar with expensive components has gotten more and more popular in recent years. I myself have been doing it for as long as I've had this channel, or my main channel 6-string TV even. Some examples would be my Squier Absorber Drop A Beast guitar with a Squier Sonic Strat as the bass and fitted with a Fishman Fluence Modern and other expensive stuff. The Cosmo Kramer, a Kramer Beretta Special with a bunch of retrofitted bells and whistles. Or the Jet Guitars Maverick, a Top Gun tribute guitar with a budget Jet JS400 guitar as the bass. Buying a guitar for anywhere between like $180 to $500 and giving it specs that you typically find on guitars worth 4 times as much can be a great way to save some money on great sound and feel while only making minimal sacrifices that come with not actually having an expensive instrument. And that's mainly due to the fact that the quality of ultra-budget guitars has gone up so much in recent years that the higher end of affordable stuff from brands like Jet, Harley Benton, or Squier for like $300 to $500 has become near impossible to distinguish from the low end of name brands like the Fender Player series without looking at the logo on the headstock. So if brand names mean less to you than sound and playability do, doing this has probably crossed your mind at some point. I've modified and upgraded my fair share of budget stuff, and today will be no different. Except this time, I really want to go into whether or not it's worth doing, because like I said, the quality of budget guitars has gone up so much in the past 3, 4, 5 years that at least eventually, modding them is going to be somewhat obsolete. But I'm not sure if we're at that point yet. So let's do a bit of a case study. I have here a beautiful Spira Guitars S400. Spira is a relatively new brand belonging to the same company as Jet Guitars, but more geared towards heavy players. Right up my alley. A classic shape and a stunning satin army green finish, and just a really solid instrument for the money. It's got a poplar body, Canadian roasted maple neck, an ebony tech fretboard, which I'm not exactly sure what that means because it's sort of a broad term. It can mean sort of a cheap version of Richlite, which if you don't know what Richlite is, it's basically compressed paper and resin, and the compression turns it into this really, really dense material that's like denser and heavier than wood. But ebony tech can also mean compressed wood instead of paper, and I think that's what this is, because there is also a crack on it on the 21st fret. If I ordered a PRS for €3,800 and it had any of that, that would be an instant send back, but it's so cheap, who cares? It doesn't affect anything, it's purely cosmetic. Continuing with the specs, 24 jumbo nickel frets, HH pickup configuration with in-house humbuckers, a hardtail bridge, 1 volume, 1 tone, 3-way selector, at a price point of €349. Currency conversions on screen. Now, Spira did send me this guitar. I'm not being paid for this video though, but it's also not a review. This is an upgrade video. And here's what I've got to upgrade it with. Affiliate links for everything in the description. A set of Damasio pickups, specifically the F-spaced Steve Special for the bridge and the standard Air Norton for the neck, at a combined price of €218. The prog nerds amongst you may recognize this configuration as being exactly what was used in the old Ibanez John Petrucci signature models. And Damasio, along with their European distribution sound service, have been kind enough to supply these for the video, so hit up the description to get your own. And a set of Geica locking tuners. The brand Geica has really been on the rise lately with some really good hardware, and while this guitar comes stock with locking tuners that are just fine, these Geica ones are a slightly different tier in terms of quality, as is occasionally in the nature of more expensive products. A set of these will run you about €65 or $69, and once again, Geica have been kind enough to set me up with these along with an affiliate link, which is in the description as well. This brings the subtotal of the replacement parts to roughly €283, and the total of the parts plus the guitar clocks in at just under €632. For reference, if you wanted a stock Super Strat in Army Green with expensive tuners and pickups in the price and quality range of those tuners and pickups, you would likely end up somewhere along the lines of the Jackson American Series Soloist. Hipshot bridge, locking tuners, 2 EMGs, and Army Green. €2,249. Now, am I saying that won't be an overall better guitar than one for $350 with some upgrades? Absolutely not. But if you're just looking for a certain aesthetic and sound for gigs or recordings, you can get 80% of the specs for not even 30% of the price. Something like the Solar A2.6 in a similar green does exist for €799, but that's a single pickup, and while I do enjoy the Duncan designed Solar pickups, I wouldn't really put them on one level with a nice crisp set of Damasios. So by doing what I'm about to do, you'd be saving at least $160 if not up to $1,600 to get your ideal result. What I'm going to do now is record some demo tracks with the guitar as is, and come back when it's finished to record the same track, same amp settings and everything, and A/B test it. Again, there are affiliate links for everything I'm using in this video in the description. The guitar, the parts, as well as the gear and plugins I use in every single one of my videos, the strings, whatever. If you do your gear shopping through those links, that supports the channel a great deal. And for all of you super nerds, I have included the DI signals in the description as well, so you can test it for yourselves if you have a reamp box to see how the before and after sounds through your own rig. Let's get modding. First order of business is, of course, to remove the old factory strings. This is actually where I encountered an unexpected, but not super uncommon, budget string-through body issue. The ferrules in the back not being secured in place by anything other than the tension of the strings, meaning that all but one of them fell straight out as soon as I loosened the strings. This is not an incredibly difficult fix. All you need is a few drops of some sort of superglue or epoxy strong enough to attach wood to metal, but it's worth pointing out, especially since it did take me by surprise. Now, I know that string ferrules are usually just press-fitted and not glued in or anything, but well, that's not press-fitting, is it? It's not fitting in the first place. The next step is to take off the Spira-branded stock tuners and replace them with the higher quality Geico ones, which thankfully dropped right in. That was a bit of a gamble, but I got the tuners way before I got the guitar, so there would have been no way for me to know the measurements beforehand. Since I got lucky though, this was a 5-minute process. Since I'm not changing that much about this guitar compared to other mod projects I've done, it's now already time to get rid of the stock pickups. These Spira pickups sound quite good, so I will be keeping them in the spare parts bin in case I ever get some beater instrument to put them into. But like I said, few things measure up to a crisp set of Damasios paired with the right pot resistance. So that was the next topic. The ideal resistance to use for both volume and tone with the Steve Special and Air Norton is 500 kilo. And given that the Spira villain pickups the guitar came with have a DC resistance roughly equal to that of the Damasios, it's fair to assume that these would be 500 kilo ohm already. But since they aren't labeled, let's check with a multimeter. Yep, perfect. One less step that I have to do. These pots are actually quite pleasant. They don't feel crunchy while twisting at all, but they're also not insanely smooth to the point that they will turn from just being nudged with your picking hand. Kind of just the way I like it, because there isn't any nuance to how I use the volume or tone knobs. It's either 0 or 100. One thing that does bug me about this guitar a little bit, that isn't a quality issue though, is the fact that the nut has incredibly sharp corners. So when playing around the first 2 frets, those will poke your left hand. So I just filed and sanded those 2 corners down slightly, and the playing experience is already much more pleasant. So up next on the agenda is dropping in the new Damasios. I did enlist the help of a wiring diagram for this one since it was my first time installing Damasios, but in retrospect I could have done without it too. Better safe than sorry though, I usually consult the diagram when it's my first time wiring something from a new brand, because the cable colors are always fucking different with every manufacturer for some reason. So with the new pickups now installed and my gross hand sweat wiped off the satin body, all that's left to do is slap on a new set of strings. And here is the upgraded Spira S400 in all of its glory. A total retail value of €632. These are unrivaled specs for that money. I know it doesn't really look much different. The only difference you can actually tell is when you look at the back of the locking tuners, because those now say Geico on the back as opposed to Spira. And here is the A/B test as promised. Gear affiliate links and DI tracks in the description. So, the verdict. Is it worth paying almost exactly as much for replacement parts as for the guitar, or is it better to A, just leave the guitar stock, or B, just buy one that costs $650 to begin with? Honestly, this was worth every minute of work, and is worth every extra penny as opposed to keeping the guitar stock. What I had before the mod was a really good entry-level guitar, something that I wish I'd had when I started playing, as opposed to a Squier Bullet Strat, which was objectively horrible. What I have, $283 worth of gear later, is a gig-ready guitar. The iconic Ibanez Petrucci pickup configuration makes this thing sound absolutely crushing. And it doesn't just sound better, but the feel has improved as a result of better tuners that, just improve the tuning stability and therefore the playing experience, as well as rounding off the edges of that nut that were constantly trying to gouge holes into my fingers. Tell me what you think in the comments, do some gear shopping while you're down there as well, and I'll see you around.